All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to this afternoon's town board work session of Monday, December 4th, 2023. I'd ask everybody please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a couple of items today on work session. One discussion item. So 166 Klein Road is a development that did not come in front of this board as it was already zoned of right. That's gone through its planning board iterations and the plat approvals. But there's a decision that we have to deal with regarding sanitary, sewer, and water infrastructure for the residential subdivision. And before we get into this, the dilemma that we have is the proposal is basically the developer would put in the infrastructure. It's under a private road, and it would be turned over to the town, which has caused a lot of internal conversation and a discussion about what the town's intent is for this type of scenario. Did I get that about right, Dan and Brian and Jeff, if he's here? Yes, Jeff's nodding. Okay. So because we haven't had this discussion in the form of a rezoning or a public hearing, I think the opportunity for the developer to bring this up to the town board at least be able to share with us what their thoughts were coming into this was something that we're going to at least hear. So we're going to hear about it today. And then we're going to go into our town board meeting items. We do have an executive session on a pending litigation matter. I don't know if it's supposed to say pending, but I was thinking it was like an ongoing. It is ongoing. So it's related to the mall.
Isn't that pending? Okay, the attorney says that's pending.
Whatever it is. J.C. Penney's. So it's not exactly a state secret. So we're going to go into that after. So with that said, I know that Mr. Lasky's here, one of his engineers is here, and his attorney's here. I don't know, Sean, how you want to proceed here? You want to everybody coming forward? Some of you coming? I don't know. It's a little right. It's not
typical.
So can you? I don't know.
So first and foremost, and obviously we're just handing it out. Right. Ken did a little handout, and what that handout is a pretty detailed summary of the whole history of this project. And as you indicated, Supervisor Culpa, because this was a residential subdivision on property that's properly zoned, it did not require any review or approval specifically from the town board. So you haven't been as intricately involved in this project as many town departments, as well as the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So our position is quite simple. We certainly acknowledge the fact that the town is considering or has already considered a change in policy. The change in policy, and the engineering department can chime in, is basically whereas sanitary sewer infrastructure and water infrastructure for a subdivision involving a private right-of-way, which is what we have, typically, or in the past, was always basically turned over to the town of Amherst. It's my understanding, and we had a virtual meeting with the town attorney, Jeff Vishali and others on Friday, that there's been historically or even recently some concerns that have arisen relative to that, to some other unrelated subdivisions. What we're asking the town board to do, and we're not in disagreement with that policy, ultimately that's in your discretion and you have the technical expertise of the engineering department. What we're asking is just for this specific project, the subdivision at 166 Klein Road, to be accepted from that requirement, if that's the requirement that the town chooses. And really the reasons that we're asking that are as follows. First and foremost, I want to mention that we began this process all the way back in June of 2021. We went through numerous reiterations, numerous hearings, including hearings held by the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And ultimately, earlier this year, well into the review process, the Planning Board approved the preliminary plat. And that was at its meeting on February 16th. It is important to note that the Planning Board did impose one condition dealing with this topic. That basically stated ownership status of the proposed water line and sanitary sewer line to be determined by the town board in consultation with the town attorney. So that's all the way back in February of this year. After we received approval, Ken Zolich from GPI Engineering, who's here, proceeded with engineered plans. We've made numerous submissions to the Health Department, the Water Authority. Just preliminary plat by itself does not finalize the review process. We made updated submissions to the Planning Department. And then lo and behold, on September 15th of this year, we received a memorandum from the town attorney's office stating that there had been a change in the policy, which we were not aware of. And as you know, there's been subsequent meetings and discussions since then. So what we're asking is for this particular project, given that that would result in additional delay, we'd have to form a sanitary sewage works corporation, we'd have to form a waterworks corporation, those would have to be reviewed and approved by the county agencies, the DEC, this board, you would be parties to those agreements and to those entities. There'd be some redesign of engineering, reapprovals, the addition of an RPZ, et cetera, et cetera. We're asking that this particular project, that we were only informed of that potential policy change 7 months later, be accepted. With that being said, we still need final plat approval from the planning board. Unfortunately, we had to request a 6-month extension in August, so currently the preliminary plat expires in April of this year. And basically, we'd be more than willing to work with both the town attorney and the engineering department to include that language suggested by both those parties be included for the offering plan for the condominium for this project, meaning language that specifies that the association will be required to maintain repairs, replacement of all the private infrastructure, the roadway, the sanitary sewer lines and water lines that we were hoping would the ownership of the town would take. All of that information, various easements, we believe we can work out with the town attorney's office and the engineering department. That offering plan needs to include a budget, ultimately needs to be reviewed and approved by the New York State Attorney General's office, so there would be adequate protections for those to be in place. We're also going to be granting numerous easements to the town of Amherst, as have been specified in connection with the previous approvals. So in summary, that's really our position. I do want to note, per the virtual meeting on Friday, we're not asking for the town board to make a decision today. We do appreciate the opportunity to come in and give a brief presentation, and again, for you to take the opportunity to look at the handout. And of course, we welcome any input and questions you have. I also want to note that, as always, we appreciate working closely with the town departments. This has been a challenging project, and the project would go forward either way, but we're hoping and we believe that it would be equitable to accept or exempt this particular subdivision that has a lengthy history from that requirement. I also want to note, and someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, I do not believe there are any other currently proposed subdivisions in front of the town where this particular requirement would be triggered. So if that occurs in the future, obviously there's a policy change, people will be informed of that policy change, and we'll have to design their subdivisions accordingly.
Thanks. So I believe you're correct. I would have to ask Daniel Latowski or Brian Armstrong if there's something else that the town knows of that we're reviewing mid-process. And the reason for us making the change in terms of policy is, frankly, I mean, some of the subdivisions that we're working in Jeff, you can correct, or Brian, correct me if I'm wrong here, have had less than suitable road conditions. I'm wondering first if you guys had addressed this in the meeting on Friday. I was not at that meeting, but, you know, even though it's a private road, will it be built to public road standards?
It is.
That's something that I'm sure. The other issue, of course, is the town municipality working on, you know, private land, right? If the road's held privately by, in this case, I guess, an HSA,
By a condo association, yes.
condo association.
And there will be easements, and it's already specified in the previous approvals that we need to grant those required easements.
Those access easements would grant us the ability to go and do whatever work, maintain what would be our pipes in the same way we would on any other road.
Right, but again, I think, and I'll let the engineering department or town attorney chime in, the goal would be first and foremost for that responsibility to lie with the association to be formed. But Mr. Lasky has confirmed that he would agree to language by which if the town does incur costs in connection with those measures, that the association would be responsible to indemnify the town.
Okay. Marty, is there anything you want to add to this mix?
Just that I've had conversations with Mr. Hopkins, and we've talked about also the potential of restrictive covenant as well.
Of what?
A restrictive covenant on the property to ensure that runs.
Yeah, it's a good point that Marty's making. So, right, ultimately, once we work out that language, we would also record that at the Erie County Clerk's office. That's an important step because that would put everyone, including prospective purchasers and their counsel, on notice of those requirements. So thank you I forgot to mention that.
Okay, Brian Armstrong or Jeff, you want to
Should be Jeff.
come on down?
So I think, you know, one of our concerns is obviously liability for the town's operations, either in repair or maintenance of our infrastructure on privately held property. You are right, Supervisor, that we have had less than stellar results from some of these private developments, one of which continues to be a thorn in our side today, whether it's the quality of the road, not having curbs, et cetera, whether it's stormwater issues. So that's obviously a concern of ours. My other concern is the ad valorem tax impacts on this. Even though they're small, if there's condo status associated with this, their AD charges are less, and I get less revenue on capital plant and capital line charges in the district. So that's something that, you know, I've been kind of thinking about here as I've been mulling this over, and why are these in general moving forward not a great idea? It may be only $27 per $100,000 of ad valorem, but still that can potentially add up. And all of these developments that have occurred in the past, because they have that, so this is an argument against condo status, really not necessarily, but it does impact the district as well. So with that, I've pretty much said my piece.
I can think of a lot of arguments against condo status.
Exactly.
I mean, look, I don't think this board has. I won't speak. Maybe I shouldn't speak for the board. My sense is there's been support for the change in policy. Board members can certainly speak for themselves. That I don't know that the direction or the direction of policy is necessarily what this board has to weigh, as much as we have to weigh how that policy ought to be applied to something that was in motion, I guess.
Sure.
Some of the dilemma, you know, when it comes to private sector roads and issues like that have been in storm scenarios, you know, the adequacy of snow removal options. You know, obviously there's a daisy chain of events that has to happen before somebody can get to a road like this. Private sector snow clearing, where, you know, the town highway has to first clear the connecting streets. Then, you know, so if you were to experience an issue with water or something in that scenario, whose responsibility is it to clear? And
Right.
You know, is it
Exactly.
is it engineering having to basically clear a path for engineering to do maintenance? Is it, you know, is water authority involved in that mix? So there are some legitimate reasons why we've moved away from this. But again, we have this scenario where we had something in process already. So, questions from this board for either our engineer or for the applicant in this case?
Perhaps not a question, but an observation. The $16,000, $16,154.37 payment that's set aside, that's adequate for, how was that decided? I guess is the question I'm asking.
Oh, the I&I fee?
Yeah.
That's based on the peak flow of the development multiplied times 4, and then converted to 250 gallons a minute, $250 per gallon per minute of that multiplication is given to us back as a mitigation for I&I. That goes in a not an escrow account, an agency account that we use for lining, manhole rehab, et cetera. So that's a policy that we set forth back in 2017, and it's codified in the local sewer use law. So it's adequate that way, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I've been involved in lots of these discussions and meetings as the liaison to the departments.
Well, it's an interesting subject. So, Sean, you want to come back up for a minute? Again, admittedly, I wasn't in in a Friday conversation. I know there was staff. The town board probably has some recommendations to take into consideration from that. When are you looking for a decision by?
Well, we're hoping that you could potentially issue a decision at your next meeting. Again, we've already had to get one 6-month extension of the preliminary plat, and we'd prefer not to have to request another one. And then ultimately, given how long we've worked on this project, you know, we'd like to move forward, and we still do need final plat approval from the planning board.
That you do, I'm just trying to remember, you do have that request formally submitted in a letter? I know we did the work sessions at request, but is that is? Okay.
It's in my letter asking for it to be put on the agenda
Okay.
this afternoon. And again, pursuant to the virtual meeting on Friday, we all agreed, you know, the town needs to
No,
consider.
I just want to make sure that the request for consideration is a direct request is there.
I do want to note, and I think this is an important point, and hopefully it would be avoided, that even under the scenario whereby we would have to go back to the drawing board, form a sewage works corporation, form a water works corporation, get approval from the DEC, get approval from the county, get approval from this board, the town still has to be, under New York State transportation law, a party to those entities. So ultimately, and unfortunately, if all goes bad, the town still is on the hook. So we think we can put the town in as good a position via conditions, again, that would be subject to a declaration of restrictions to be recorded at the Erie County Clerk's office.
All sewage comes back to the town at some point. All right, joking aside, you know, so I do, I know that I will acknowledge we did have several emails regarding this matter that the town board received either over the weekend or today. So we will be clocking those in as express communications.
Okay.
Obviously, there's no public hearing involving this circumstance. I think the town board should be able to come to a decision, yay or nay, within a couple of weeks, I would think. That seemed fair, as long as the departments feel like they can walk everybody through that as they need to.
I have a question. As the way I see it, this is not a policy vote. This is a direction to the planning and engineering and highway departments on how to handle this. So it's not Because normally this wouldn't come to us. So we're giving those three departments direction on what to do.
I think in this.
I believe you're nodding your head in agreement.
I think, you know, as commissioners of the sewer district and of the drainage, of the special districts in general, I'm not an attorney, but I think these types of policy decisions do have to be made, should be made at the board level. They shouldn't be made at the department level, because then these kind of things happen.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things. One, a policy decision moving forward, and a second decision on how we handle this particular situation, because they got caught in limbo. Does that make
I
sense?
think we have a policy, all right? I
We
think
don't
that,
have a written
I-
policy.
On the policy piece, it's my understanding that there's going to be a change to the zoning ordinance to address this in future subdivision reviews.
right,
and-
we're handling this through subdivision reg, which we're working on.
And then again, once the town formally does that, everyone's on notice. You know, it will appear in the subdivision regulations.
Jeff and Dan, I'm looking at the two of you, I assume that if the town board issued a resolution, even though it's right, it's not binding, it's not a local law, it's not a change to zoning, but would it benefit the two of you in your reviews to have a resolution that at least cements the board's intent, even if it doesn't have the teeth of a zoning change yet?
Well, the zoning change would take time, so if we want to put this policy into
get it.
effect moving forward, we
I know,
need to do something.
Kind of question I suppose nothing stops us from passing a resolution, adopting a resolution as a direction, even though it's not necessarily binding, right? If it's not a local law, certainly the validity of it could be challenged.
Right. That would provide a firm decision.
Okay. The 18th.
Thank you. And if any additional information is needed by the board or the applicable departments before that meeting, let me know. I also do want to note that I will email a copy of the summary to the town board as well as the representatives of the town departments here today. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of items on the town board meeting agenda, and we'd potential consent agenda, so I'd like to just kind of review those now. We obviously have a number of public hearings this evening. So I'll just kind of go through each one of those. 955, which is Planned Unit Development or Amherst Central Park. Dan, are you presenting that? Okay. Then Resolution 910 is the local law amending Chapter 121 Historic Preservation. Do you know who's doing that?
Nora Robshaw came the last time.
Yeah, it was held open. I believe James Quinn and Nora Robshaw will be here again tonight with Susan Palmer. Susan Palmer intends to be here
Okay.
to answer any questions the board has about the specific changes.
So we held it open without, okay. All right, Resolution 956 is the 420 New Road rezoning. Any idea who's that? Rubino's coming himself to present, okay. Resolution 623 is the Eggert Road rezoning. Now, there was some conversation back and forth between resident group and the developer. They've all agreed to push this at least to the 18th. In the meantime, we're going to have
Not at least, to definitely the 18th.
well, both parties agreed to sit down in a non-public meeting to talk about and make sure that all of the information requested had been made available. So we're going to
They
do that
already
first.
had one meeting. They're having a second?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Resolution, so that will be adjourned this evening without proceeding. Resolution 957 is the 4774 and 4780 Sheridan Drive rezoning, which is the old Gleason's, right? And that's Sean? You're presenting that? Okay. All right. All right, resolution 958, under development review actions, is a notice of completion for the final supplemental of the generic environmental impact statement, or FGEIS, for North Forest, Maple Road, and Maple. Are we expect to take this action this evening, Marty?
When it's in that section, it means we vote.
We can do that with the public hearing closed?
The public hearing is on the PUD alone,
Okay.
so this is a review action, deeming it complete.
Any questions regarding the review action? All right. Resolution 959 is a seeker determination on 2350 Sweet Home Road, Z 2016-16D, Z 2017-11B. Any questions regarding the seeker? All right. Resolution 960 is the adoption of amended declaration of restrictions required as part of the rezoning decision. Now, this has been before us before. This is for the additional windows. My concern, as I expressed it to the developer, was that that additional window wasn't so much the views out of the windows. There's a number of views from all of the different windows that overlap one another, but it's that created another bedroom. And that by creating another bedroom, you create a 3-bedroom unit within walking distance to the university. And I had concerns about the rental policies in the HSA agreements and the ability to rent those units to students, which certainly the land use or the site plan isn't conducive to student housing. But when you hit 3 bedrooms, it made it such that you could conceivably pay back your mortgage and turn a profit in the second year of ownership of one of those units, should you decide to sublet to students. That was the concern I had. The letter that I believe has been attached, in, at least it was, I think I saw it in mine, was a letter which basically agreed to changes in the HSA regulations that would make it certainly less appealing, but far less ideal to do student rentals, and that in my mind that satisfied. I didn't think we would get that far, but they did offer to change those subdivision regs, or not subdivision regs, sorry, HSA regulations. So I think that's obviously more than I would have thought they would have given me on that, but I don't know if there's any other questions about this project. Any issues? Okay. All right.
The next resolution
We
is
have-
mine, and
yeah.
we have a Scribner's error.
On the, okay, the personal protection
Scribner's
equipment.
error is under financial impact. It should be $750, not,
Okay.
they added an extra zero because the equipment we're buying, it's radio communication
Really
equipment.
expensive batteries otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So,
With that Scribner's error, is there any reason not to put this on consent? Okay. Resolution 962 is a license agreement at 72 Sunburst Circle, Armitage, CRS 4446. Any questions regarding that agreement? Any reason not to extend that via consent? Resolution 963 is a temporary access agreement, CRS 4445. Any questions regarding that access agreement? Any reason not to extend that via consent? Resolution 964 is the settlement of an Article 7 matter for 9300 Share Transit LLC versus Town of Amherst. Any questions regarding the settlement? Any reason not to agree to the settlement via consent? Resolution 965 is an authorization for prepayment to the RDT Mail Corporation, previously DXO Communications of Buffalo Incorporated. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold that from consent? Resolution 966 is permission for an insert in tax bill mailing CRS 4444. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 967 is an extension of the GAR contract, CMS 2261, CRS 4420. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 968 is the year-end budget transfers. Any questions regarding those transfers? Any reason to withhold that from consent? Resolution 969 are budget transfers and amendments. Any questions regarding that set of transfers and amendments? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 970 is an extension of the townwide paint contract, CRS 4386, original CRS CMS 38803533. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 971 is an extension of the third-party administrator services for workers' compensation, CRS 4392. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 972 is to extend the RFP number 202111, Employee Assistance Program, CRS 4393, original CRS CMS 3048, 2945. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 973 is a contract for pre-employment physicals and related medical services, CRS 4404. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 974 is an award of bid 2023046 for calcium nitrate, CRS 4413. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 975 is an award of bid 2023050, Building Department Vehicles, CRS 4425. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 976 is an award of bid 2023049, Transportation of Stabilized Sludge Cake, Grit, and Screenings, CRS 4434 and 4435. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 977 is award of bid 2023055 for police vehicles, CRS 4450. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 978 is to approve a piggyback contract for ice melt products, CRS 4436. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 979 is a newly elected Amherst Town Justice Ann Nichols to attend training. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 980 is an ambulance contract, CRS ID 4455. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 981 is a resolution amendment, Robin Hill and Swanson Terrace Waterline Replacement, Town of Amherst, project number 2021.042. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 982 is a resolution amendment for the Red Oak Waterline Replacement, Town of Amherst, project number 2020.017, CRS number 4329. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 983 is a change order number 1 and final for Montani Construction General Contract, North Amherst Recreation Football Fieldhouse Town of Amherst Job 2021.044 CRS 4437. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 984 is an award of pre-engineering design work, Simco Refrigeration Incorporated, Amherst Central Park Ice Ribbon Town Project number 2023.016E, CRS number 4458. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 985 is a recreation leader part-time senior services. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 986 is the supervising tax clerk for the town clerk's office. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 987 is the clerk typist senior services. Any questions regarding that appointment? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 988 is public safety dispatcher central fire alarm. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 989 is a deputy superintendent of highways highway department. Any questions regarding the appointment? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 990 is a deputy director of youth and recreation youth and recreation. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 991 is a lieutenant of detectives for the police department, 2 positions. Any questions regarding the appointments? Any reason to withhold them from consent? Resolution 992 is a police lieutenant and police department, 2 positions. Any questions regarding those positions? Any reason to withhold them from consent? Resolution 993 is a seeker determination amendment to Chapter 203 of the Town Code zoning relating to accessory dwelling units, ZTA 2023-03. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 911 is the adoption of local law to amend Chapter 203 of the Town Code relating to accessory dwelling units, ZTA 2023-03. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 994 is a resolution dated March 17, 2003 and June 16, 2003, geotechnical analysis. We are going to hold that for a voice vote. Dan, do you have a second? Do you want to just kind of, or somebody want to address
Oh,
the...
Thank you. We're asking the town board to rescind some historical resolutions that are about 20 years old. The purpose of those resolutions were to require a geotechnical analysis or a soil study at the time that a developer wished to submit an application to our office. Subsequent to the year 2003, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did an in-depth study, and now the International Building Code requires soil investigations routinely. We feel that this is no longer necessary, and it actually would be beneficial to not require it, but it still gives the planning director as well as the building commissioner the opportunity to require one if they deem it necessary during early planning.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Sure, yep, absolutely.
Why, I mean, you say it's no longer necessary. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So with the adoption of the series of international codes, it became mandatory that geotechnical evaluations were required at the time someone were to construct a building. That is routinely a policy that the building commissioner's office mandates. We think that to require an in-depth geotechnical evaluation at the time of planning is unnecessary. It's generally done through a developer's due diligence before they get into in-depth construction design, because it is required at building permit stage. If there are suspect geotechnical concerns, the planning director still has that authority to ask for that study, just like he or she has the authority to ask for a traffic impact study or any other study that we would deem necessary at a preliminary planning stage.
Well, then can I ask, so what is the benefit of approving this resolution?
The benefit is it assist the development community in our office in reviewing projects in a timely manner without having to wait for a in-depth study that can be delayed based on weather conditions or the geotechnical engineer's ability to perform a field investigation during the planning stages. So it's going to be done. It's going to be done at a later point in time, but it should not unduly hold up a review for preliminary planning purposes, in our opinion.
Would it always be done, or sometimes would be done at a later stage?
It will always be done prior to a building permit being issued. It's part of the structural analysis that the building commissioner's office has to review and that the design professional has to evaluate in designing a foundation and a structural design.
So it's more of a where the geotechnical procedure
Yes.
falls in
Correct.
terms of timeline.
Correct.
So is there a case where some possible developments would not be required to do a geotechnical or soil study?
It's very rare that a geotechnical study would not be required. Right now, if you wish to build an addition onto your single-family dwelling, the building commissioner's office requires you to do a geotechnical study, and that's for a small addition.
But it might be possible that in some cases, the geotechnical or soil study might not be.
No, the design professionals that is construct or actually designing the building has to substantiate what the soil conditions are and that the existing soil conditions as well as the geotechnical conditions can withstand the design that is being proposed. Basements, correct.
So just let me try to rephrase it. So prior to '03, right, and then still was the case whenever this got re-upped, right? Because I think it was voted on
Yeah, a couple
twice.
months thereafter in '03.
Prior to '03, New York State Building Code did not mandate geotechnical study prior to construction. However, sort of around 2010 that New York State adopted. I'm trying to remember.
2010 was the International
Right,
Series of
adopted
Codes.
the International Building Code as its basis, which changed the state law to say that you needed to have a geotechnical study as part of your structural evaluation. So at that point, it rendered this a little moot, other than we were requiring it on the front end and it wasn't really being completed, or it didn't. We're requiring it on the front end for conditions like rezoning or those types of things, when in fact the way an architect or structural engineer would approach the project is you have to do it prior to construction, but you can plan to your heart's delight prior to, if you wanted to.
There's one other piece to this.
Yeah.
The project might change as it goes through the process. So
Right.
then they might have to do, they would end up having to do a second one because of things
Right,
being
so-
different. So it makes more sense to do it
So wearing
for a
it.
building permit.
Wearing an architect's hat, if the building shifted and the footing shifted even 15 feet, you may have to
Do another soil
do the
boring.
entire investigation over again on account of you needing to have the structural analysis at the location of the footings.
Correct. Or you could file for a rezoning request, which the town board could deny, and you would have spent the resource to do a geotechnical analysis that wasn't required.
Sure, okay. All right, well, Councilwoman, do you have any further, or Deputy Supervisor, any
I
further
still,
questions? It's fine, we're still
because
gonna
of
vote on it
historically
tonight.
How this happened in 2003. I wasn't on the board yet, but I was coming to meetings. And I know, and you referenced it in the resolution about the sinking homes. So I mean,
It made
that was a
sense in
very big
2003.
concern. That was a very big concern, and so that's what I'm still remain concerned about. Because
we-
I know that they're shifting in the land,
So we'll,
even now.
we'll leave it to a voice vote this evening.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for your answers.
All right, Resolution 995 is a request for additional funds for the 2023 Asset Forfeiture Trust Account. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 996 is the purchase of a reach-in freezer for the buildings and ground. Purchase of the reach-in freezer B&G Restaurant Supplies, not buildings and grounds. Any questions regarding that? CRS 4379. Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 997 is a request to use trust and agency funds. Any questions regarding that? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 998 is Granite Net Software Renewal Q's Incorporated, CRS number 4448. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 999 is an emergency procurement transportation of liquid sludge for Modern Disposal Services, LLC, CRS 4447. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1000 is the 2024 ID card fees. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1001 is the 2024 summer camp fees. Any questions regarding the fees? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1002 is the 2024 golf rates. Any questions regarding that resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1003 is an amendment to CRS 4328. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1004 is a notice of award for HHS CRS 4457. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Resolution 1005 is an authorization to pay a vendor. Any questions regarding the resolution? Any reason to withhold it from consent? Communication 131 is a request for public hearing for 2280 Worley Drive. We say second town board meeting in January right now. That date will be determined at reorganization. Any reason not to grant that via consent? Communication 132 is a correspondence from Rob Savarino regarding 4774 and 4780 Sheridan Drive. I assume that we're just going to receive this
Yes.
and refer it to the planning department and town attorney.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Any reason not to do that via consent? Communication 133 is correspondence from Sean Hopkins Esquire, 1350 Eggert Road. Any reason? Well, I recommend we receive this, refer to the town and planning department and town attorney as well.
Yes.
Anything else? All right. Any reason not to do that via consent? Communication 134 is a letter from Judy Ferraro. I recommend we receive this and refer to the town attorney and town planning department. I don't really, I mean, I guess just the town attorney and
Town attorney.
fine. I don't know. Go finance, but got it. Or we could receive and file.
Well, we always,
All right, let's, I would then recommend we receive and file it. Reason not to do that via consent. Communication 135 is a notice of claim from Lawrence J. Howard versus Town of Amherst. I recommend we receive this, refer to the town attorney. Any reason not to do that via consent? Communication 136 is a notice of claim for Robert Giolando versus the Town of Amherst. I recommend we receive this, refer to the town attorney. Any reason not to do that via consent? Communication 137 is a summons and complaint for Lee Fang versus the Town of Amherst. Recommend we receive this and refer to the town attorney. Communication 138 is a summons and complaint for Tracy M. Benzel versus the Town of Amherst et al. Recommend we receive this, refer to the town attorney. Any reason not to do that via consent? Communication 139 is a summons and verified complaint, MidFirst Bank versus Town of Amherst et al. I would also recommend we receive this and refer to the town attorney. Any reason not to do that via consent? Okay. With that, we have a executive session to adjourn to for purposes discussing a litigation matter. I would motion to adjourn to that executive session at this time.
Second.